You may be taking DNS for granted, but I've got a story that'll tell you why you shouldn't ignore it.
So Tony, it looks like you got an article on some DNS-linked data theft. Why don't you tell us a little more about it?
So the article that I'm discussing today deals with a DNS threat report. The threat report was drafted by a European-based DNS security company, and they surveyed a large amount of companies globally. And what they found was really interesting, that within Europe in general, 40% of the 400 companies within Europe that they surveyed had problems related to DNS issues for either incidents, data breaches, so on and so forth.
It covered a lot of gamut of different types of DNS-based things, from spoofing to DNS reflection attacks, DNS exhaustion attacks, or even DNS tunneling and malware that uses DNS as exfiltrations.
They had also discussed about GDPR and how that, these companies in Europe really need to focus on trying to secure data that's around their customers or their users. And since that's in play now as well, that we should probably be looking at, globally, trying to do some better things with DNS.
Yeah, I mean, DNS obviously is part of the control fabric of the internet, right? So very little can happen without DNS functioning properly. DNS controls pretty much everything that happens between your device and the internet. It can't really happen in most cases without some DNS coming into play. Historically, we've had a lot of abuse over DNS, either DNS reflection attacks or DNS tunneling, which we've also seen with some types of tool sets. But the thing I think is probably more relevant to the whole conversation with GDPR and data theft and data exfiltration is when you start talking about the DNS-based malware that's been kind of coming into play more so over the past 5 years. And there's a lot of this point-of-sale malware, and then there's some actor sets like Fin7, which are a big group of like credit card theft guys. They use DNS as a lot of these tools for point of sale and Fin7. They like to use DNS as the command and control mechanism as well as an exfiltration mechanism, because a lot of security analysts don't really pay a lot of attention to the DNS traffic like they do their proxy logs and their firewall logs. And DNS a lot of times has unfettered kind of access in and out of your corporate networks a lot of times. So where a firewall proxy might block a connection outbound, rarely will it block DNS-based queries back and forth. And so there's actors out there who are using that more so lately. It's one of those things where security analysts in those parts of the world need to probably pay a little bit more attention than they might have been to events that occur with respect to DNS-type security events.
It seems like a little bit of a culture difference between America and Europe, where maybe they don't take a look at DNS as much as we do. I know, when I got here, I was told, and I read quite a bit, that DNS is often ignored, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be ignored. You should pay attention to what's going on in your DNS records. You should invest in the visibility in it, but you should also have analysts reviewing it. Don't be afraid to alarm in that space as well. So.
I completely agree with everything that you've said, and hopefully with these various attacks and issues, all of us in a global community can kind of just chip away at it and try to decrease it as much as we can. But the actors are always out there and always trying new things.
Don't ignore your DNS, I think, is the important takeaway here. It's a lot of data going through there. It's a critical service to the internet. In most cases, the internet can't function without it. And from a security analyst perspective, it's very important that you have visibility into your DNS activity, but that you also go through steps to analyze it and alarm on it.